morning to all. I would like to start by sharing with you some initial reflections that will guide us maybe during the seminar to inspire us in working together in relation to this particular area. In this regard, the first question I would like to all of us to ask is how we can encourage the development of new improved varieties. And there are some elements of reflection in relation to that question. I will continue by giving some examples in UPOV members for agricultural development, and I will conclude by highlighting some of the recent developments in relation to service for UPOV members and users of the UPOV system. First, how to encourage the development of new varieties. Just to provide a context, we can see in this slide that in the past there was actually more food production meant more land use and more use of different resources. But we can see a decoupling taking place in relation to this matter, as you can see, in around the 1960s. If we look into this decoupling, we can see that at the beginning, this decoupling was used to additional use of inputs. But as you can see by the recent developments in the second graphic, the decoupling at the end, it was really used for efficiency gains. And those efficiency gains is actually their new plant varieties. So at the heart of the competitiveness in the agricultural sector is the continued access by farmers to improved varieties that will produce more using less resources. So from that point of view, I would like to focus on that, how we can achieve that, what led to this development. If we put ourselves into the needs of the farmers, the needs and aspirations of the farmers, we see that it's very important to identify those important variety characteristics that will really make a difference when the farmer is facing some of the challenge, whether in relation to production or to quality. We see that it is very important to secure resources to breed these new varieties. Is financial resources, human resources, and a recent study has shown that there is a need to continue train new plant breeders worldwide, because this is a very specific area, and is back to the point that Francesco mentioned this morning, how we can ensure that the future generation continue to play a relevant role in this area. But then when you have secured the resources to breed, normally may take 5 to 7 years for some crops, agricultural crops, but for certain fruit crops and trees may take even 20 to 25 years to get really new genetics that will make a difference in relation to new varieties that will be adapted to the farmers and growers' needs and aspirations. So then the question, when they have been developed, these new varieties will need to be delivered to the farmers, but all sizes of farmers in different locations, in different parts of the country, and at the right time, because this is something we just heard this morning that we were expecting to have some farmers with us today, but now the priority is dealing with some particular harvest matters that makes them not to even join today, because they cannot choose when is the right time to act in an appropriate manner to use those beneficial circumstances and some challenging ones. So the UPOV's role is to create the space for international harmonization and cooperation. And this is why it is important to set up a system that will enable all of us to work in a very constructive way, learning from each other and supporting each other. So there is the key element I would like to highlight of this slide is that without an effective protection and enforcement system, it will be very difficult to secure the investment in breeding, long-term investment that requires new development of varieties to meet these constant evolving needs of farmers and growers. And how we can highlight that with an image that will be easier for us to understand. I'm just giving you this, I will say, a little bit summary on how a vibrant, effective plant variety protection system will look like. First, you can see the diversity of breeders is very important. We need all of them. We need public research breeding, we need private sector breeding, we need pharma breeders. They're very successful cooperative of farmers that have become breeders. We also need to create job and opportunities to small, medium-sized enterprises. All of them will be there if we can secure the constant investment in breeding. And how that takes place in practice? Through plant variety protection. Plant variety protection is an enabler for these collaborations, for these partnerships. You need partnerships to develop the varieties, but you need partnerships to commercialize the varieties, and you need partnerships to ensure constant flow of information and knowledge from the farmers back to the breeders in order to meet the needs of all of us as consumers. So this is why I'm just highlighting it is important to have this efficient distribution system that will make it successful for the farmer. So in that regard, without an effective system, this kind of a scheme will not be put in practice. Mr. Min, with your permission, I'm using one of your slides because I think how to illustrate that in a particular country. We have the situation of Vietnam. Yesterday we were discussing, we know each other since 2005, when Vietnam was introducing plant variety protection, and 2 years before it became a UPOV member, 1 year before it became a UPOV member. And as we can see, the situation of Vietnam before becoming UPOV members, there was no professional seed quality control was very difficult, and the distribution of these new varieties was not that successful because they were only available through public breeding institutes that while they had a lot of knowledge on the crops, they may not have the knowledge on how to make them successful for the farmers' needs. And this changed after plant variety protection and UPOV membership. Through plant variety protection, there was the license, and there were the different developments in the value chain that enable access to these varieties with the professional services and distribution that led to good outcome for farmers and good production, increased income for farmers, and then access to market. One of the key, I will say, pillars of the UPOV system is the breeder's exemption, because the philosophy in UPOV that is at the heart of the UPOV Convention is continuous progress in breeding. And continuous progress in breeding is facilitated by with the first element that we discussed, how we can ensure there is investment to develop the varieties, but once those varieties are developed and protected, then it is possible to recover the investment. But on the other hand, the breeders make available, because they are in the market, the varieties for further breeding. So there is constant breeding from the best. That's the whole idea. So the more incentives to develop varieties, the more varieties are protected, the more varieties in the market, and the more these varieties in the market can be used for further breeding. One example of how that works in practice from a policy perspective, I know that this is very important in Thailand, how to ensure the smallholder farmers have access to these new plant varieties, is to ensure that even public research institutes, when they protect the varieties, they can reach, public-private partnerships. But they can decide under which conditions those varieties are commercialized. They can decide the conditions of the license. They can decide different treatment for smallholder farmers than for middle and large farmers. When you can negotiate, and they can be constant flow of royalties coming also back to the public breeding institutes to continue breeding. But here we have an example for South Africa, and we can see how these public bred varieties are also achieving some policy objectives from the country to ensure that those companies that receive license to produce and commercialize the varieties, they are obliged to include in their value chains the smallholder farmers of citrus varieties, that they grow these varieties. So they ensure a development objective of the country. So just to summarize on the first question, why it is important plant variety protection in a way that is efficient and harmonized, if possible, at the international level, is because plant breeding is long and expensive. But then, on the other hand, plant varieties can be very easily reproduced because we are dealing with live, biological living material. So without effective protection, there will not be this development and the growing and commercializing of these varieties. We can see that the molecular techniques play an increasing role in the enforcement, and that also helps to identify the material in the market, because those who take the risk are actually the farmers and growers. Those who will invest in purchasing seed from improved varieties are farmers and growers. So without effective enforcement, then it's not only protecting the breeders to recover the investment, but protecting the farmers and growers that trust that those new improved varieties are bringing those benefits. So this is why there is no a single case in UPOV members or smallholder farmers have been persecuted in actions because of infringement of plant breeders' rights. Because in principle, what it is important is that the commercial farmers, they contribute to pay for these fees of improved varieties. But then there may be possibilities for smallholder farmers to provide a different access to them in a way that is balanced and takes in consideration the also development needs and the need for smallholder farmers to have access to improved and protected varieties. So at the heart of why UPOV is the mission of UPOV to provide and promote an effective system of plant variety protection with the aim of encouraging the development of new varieties of plants for the benefit of society. Then we will come now to one particular element I would like to highlight, how this is possible, how the UPOV community keeps growing and attracting new UPOV members. Mainly now we are very active in Africa, in Asia, and in the Caribbean, because they realize that this access to improved varieties are key for their own national development goals. And I will come back to that a little bit later today. But I would like to highlight that one enabler of this cooperation at the international level is because UPOV members have a comparable level of protection in the laws. So they can talk to each other with common basis. They are the common pillars that appear in the laws of the different UPOV members. So nationals from one country, breeders, they can be treated the same way in other members. And this is why in some of these bilateral discussions on economic cooperation, this matter is important, to have a level playing field for enabling protection in the different members of UPOV in an equal level of protection. And this is enabled through a law that provides the essential elements of the UPOV Convention. And in order for a country to become a UPOV member, needs to have a law that provides those essential elements. And when the Council of UPOV, the governing body of UPOV, takes a positive decision saying this future UPOV member, like the recent UPOV member, Armenia, provides the basis for the international standards that are provided in the convention, then the country can become a UPOV member. I will give you a highlight what is the current status of UPOV at the global level. So this is a very dynamic map, as you can see. We have in green the UPOV members as of today. So as I mentioned, 75 UPOV members covering 98 states, because we have the European Union and the African Intellectual Property Organization. You can see in brown those countries that recently, this is only covering 2020 to 2024, the most recent 4 years. They are the countries who are active in requesting the advice of the UPOV Council on the examination of their laws. This appears in brown. But then we look into orange, very vibrant movements. We have received new requests of countries that are requesting support for UPOV membership. And I have to say, in relation to Asian countries, recently Cambodia is also very active, requesting advice from the UPOV office. So you can see Lao PDR also requesting support, and we have some countries who are requesting information on the UPOV system, as you can see. Also, Timor-Leste is moving towards UPOV membership. Then some examples, just to highlight, there are many. And yesterday I was thinking, which ones would be relevant for the situation that in this country you may be considering? What will be some inspiring examples? So I would like to continue build on what we discussed before about how to secure investment in breeding, long-term investment in breeding. So just to give you what are the key pillars that will be the drivers of policy decisions at the country level. The key drivers are food security, better, diverse choices at affordable prices of food. Then climate change, how to adapt and mitigate climate change. Economy, we see how important it is to promote the higher production, but also export opportunities, and also to reduce the import of some of the key crops. We have seen that in the COVID situation, how important was for countries to ensure that they also could produce in a way that will meet their own national development needs. We have the environment. Without effective plant variety protection and new plant varieties, sometimes there will be need to use more land and more resources, and sometimes this is affecting some of the areas that are in the forest and the wild plants. So this is also one key element to ensure sustainable development while protecting the environment. And technology transfer. We saw how the plant variety protection is an enabler of partnerships, public-private collaborations, and that will enable these new varieties, and when they are in the market, they will be available for further breeding. So the best technology transfer is the varieties themselves that will be available in the domestic breeding programs. And that really translates into benefits for society and also farmers' benefits. Looking into some examples, here I have an example from the Republic of Korea and hot pepper. I know pepper is also very important in Thailand. And back to giving farmers choices. You can see here varieties, two types of varieties grown side by side. One, it is a resistant variety to this particular fungus, and another one is not. You could imagine how giving the farmer the choice to choose that variety that will be resistant to this fungus variety will be very beneficial for the farmer. So it's back to giving choices to farmers. And the farmers will choose the better varieties. They are very smart. They are the ones who take risk. They are business persons. So for them, they need to see. They need to see in the field. And to see it in the field, there is need to have plant variety protection, because those varieties may not be grown in a country if there is no plant variety protection. Here again, we have one example of how efficient plant variety protection system has been enabler of greater access to improved varieties. The example of Vietnam and this impact study that is available on the UPOV website illustrates the increase in yield thanks to breeding and new plant varieties. Here we have an example of rice and corn, but very important, how the different policies in Vietnam, together with plant variety protection and UPOV membership, have been a key driver of economic growth in the country and those key stakeholders in the value chain, relating to 5 billion upstream and downstream, relating to 2.5 of increase in GDP, as we explained at the beginning during my opening remarks. You need plant variety protection, but as part of the overall of the policy of the country to develop the agricultural sector. I was just recently in China celebrating the 25th anniversary of UPOV. And one of the key areas that draw my attention was the vibrant sector in the economy. And one of them we were discussing before about how important is ornamental sector to be an enabler of growth. I will give you more examples on that and about the Kenyan situation. I'll go more into detail how that really play a role for sustainable development goals. But here I would like to highlight that in China, this industry employs over 5 million people. And this is really a significant sector that affects the growers, the farmers, but the traders. This is a photo from the auction where they are selling the different rose and flower varieties coming from local breeding, private sector breeding in China, public sector breeding, but also foreign breeders that are protecting their varieties in China. So you can see how this is an enabler of a very vibrant sector. Now meeting more, I will say, the demand in China, but clearly this industry is getting ready to play a strategic role internationally. Another example I would like to give is how in practice, understanding the role of plant variety protection and the license, the contracts that will be built to develop and commercialize those varieties. And how the royalty, the fee that is paid for having access to produce those varieties, how that plays a role in the strategy of a public university. This is an example of UC Davis, California, and in relation to strawberry varieties. I come from Spain. The strawberry sector in Spain was developed thanks to accessing best genetics of strawberries from UC Davis, California, and had developed a very important sector of the Spanish, I would say, agricultural field, accessing, many countries in the European Union thanks to access to best genetics. And how that works in practice. So they have a different fee, royalty fee. They have a preferential fee for Californian growers of strawberries because they are the ones who do provide pay taxes to develop those varieties as is a public university. So they have a preferential access to be, for them, very competitive at the beginning. They have a different royalty for the rest of the United States. And as you can see, a different royalty outside United States. So this policy is also back to the development and the strategic aspects of this university. But one thing that drew my attention is that when they decide to commercialize the varieties worldwide, they look whether that country or territory is a UPOV member. And if they are not UPOV member, they don't provide these improved varieties, because they not only improve, they don't only provide the access to the new varieties, but they give all the know-how, all the knowledge to make it successful to the grower. Those who receive license, they receive all the support, all the knowledge that will make them competitive on quality and production and best practice for farmers. So this is the know-how that comes together with the new varieties. And I would like just to, I would like just to kind of conclude this part saying that it is very important, all of us, to communicate better. We were discussing that just before the opening of the seminar. How we can ensure that we communicate the importance. I know they are very passionate persons here about plant variety protection. I even had a little joke with Mr. Min. I said, you look younger and younger. And he said, what is your secret? He said, plant variety protection. So we know plant variety protection is at the heart of many benefits for society. By how we can communicate that better. We have here some examples or some videos showing stories of a farmer that became a breeder, how to develop the sector of the flower industry, how to transform the economy, how to really be a driver of agricultural policy. We are all together here today. I will ask you, anytime during this seminar, please reach out to me and to any of the organizers to share your stories, your successful stories, so we can really be able to communicate those benefits in a more efficient way. And just at the end, just to highlight, we need to secure investment in breeding in order to these varieties to develop. But then it's very competitive in the market. So it's very important to be sure that the plant variety protection system, that the administrative part that implements the law, is implemented in a very efficient way. And this is why we have a tool that is called UPOV Prisma that facilitates the filing of applications in UPOV members. Now you can see that UPOV Prisma is becoming more and more important worldwide, so making it easier for breeders. I can see some of you nodding with your head, because it's easier like that to identify the potential markets and to be able to obtain protection more rapidly. But again, we also develop a system that could take place not only from the filing of the applications, but up to the grant of the title, and even after the grant. And all of that with digital tool called blockchain. And this is available for UPOV members. And I would like to share with you, we are trying to also discuss with UPOV members if we could provide for a trial period of these tools to those countries who are committed to become a UPOV member, so they could have access to these tools earlier in the process if they have received a positive advice of the UPOV Council on the laws. As you can see, UPOV members have embraced these tools in order to facilitate enhanced cooperation between the different members. I'm very happy to report that Ghana is one of the countries who will implement this tool. Vietnam has implemented this tool already, the first one in UPOV in September 2023. And we know that the European Union is committed to use one of the modules of this tool to facilitate the exchange of DUS reports. So it is not necessary to test again a new variety if it's already protected in another UPOV member. So this is some of the benefits of these different digitalization tools to not leave anyone behind. And if I say, the main reason of them is that if there are more applications for new varieties, there are more varieties that will be available for farmers and growers. So different ways that we convey some of the key messages on why plant variety protection is important is through seminars. And I would like to close this presentation by referring to a recent seminar on the role of plant variety protection to mitigate and address climate change. And this is the key message I would like to share with you as a closing. The UPOV system enables breeders to provide farmers with the varieties they will need to feed the world in the face of climate change. So we are working together for this objective. Thank you very much for your attention.